Hello, Claire. How are you today?
I'm okay.
Okay. I know this is like our fifth meeting. I just want to do a quick reminder, like I always do, that about confidentiality. Anything you say stays between us unless it's something that's going to harm you or another person. And again, I'll probably be taking notes, just writing down so I can keep up with what you're saying. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So, how have you been since our last meeting?
Honestly, things are kind of just the same. Still just going to visit my brother every day, and I talk to my sister, try to talk to her every day. Not that much has changed, to be honest. Kind of just in that same place.
So your sister has Alzheimer's and your brother has Parkinson's, correct?
Yeah, my sister has Alzheimer's. She lives out in California, and my brother has Parkinson's, and we recently just moved him into an assisted living home in Charleston.
How's he doing there?
It's been okay. He has his good days and his bad. I think, or at least what I'm telling myself is that ultimately was the right decision. Because it's assisted living is a little more social. He'd kind of become a bit of a hermit when he was living at our house in New York. But, it does pain me to see him. He's, very disoriented sometimes. I'll go visit him, and he wants to go walk to the library. And it's he doesn't realize that, A, it's impossible for him to walk that far at this point, and B, he's not in Cornwall. When he says the library, he means the library that was up the street from where we lived. And so it's just kind of, painful to have to, see him so disoriented and kind of, lost, and I feel a little responsible for it because, I'm the one that pushed for him to be moved closer to us down in Charleston, so.
It sounds like a difficult, putting your family somewhere that's not with you can always be difficult. You want to be there helping them and taking care of them.
Yeah, I feel a little guilty. John, obviously, after he fell, he wanted to go back home, but it was impossible. I didn't have a choice. My hands were kind of tied. Where, the bedrooms are in our house, it's a steep flight of stairs, and it's just, at this point, with his disease, impossible for him to go up and down the stairs. So, but he really didn't, he really just wanted to go home, and it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done is tell him, that's just not a possibility anymore,
Yeah, I couldn't imagine doing that. You sound like you did it knowing it was the right thing to do. You sound like you found strength to do this, and it was the right decision.
Yeah, and my family supports me. I have 3 kids and a husband, and they definitely agree with the move, you know what I mean? So that's a little reassuring. So it's not like I'm the only one in the family that was pushing for him to be put into assisted living. It just, I feel a little guilty. I know I already said that, but so when my parents were dying, my brother is the one that took care of them till they died in the house. You know what I mean? He a very kind of weirdly close relationship with my mom and then my dad, and I think he expected that someone would do the same for him. I think he always expected that he would die at home and that there would be someone, but he never married. He doesn't have kids, so it's up to me. And I'm 66 years old. I can't. I'm physically and mentally just not strong enough. But I almost feel guilty because it's he gave up all those years of his life to nurse our parents, but no one is doing that for him,
Well, you feel guilty that you don't think you're taking care of him, but putting him somewhere in a facility that has the training and resources to help someone with Parkinson's, you are helping him.
Yeah.
They have a special training and they understand it. Not to say you don't understand it, but your experience is limited, unlike theirs. And
I think he's safer there.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're deserting him. We go and visit him 5 times a week. In the very beginning, we went every single day. But it's a half hour from our condo. So now I think we're kind of slowly weaning that we go probably 4 or 5 times a week. So it's not like he's deserted by any means, but there's always going to be that guilty feeling that you're not doing what you could.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, you know, I mean, I've been there. We've had family members who were put into special homes just because, you know, they had a disease that we couldn't handle or help them thoroughly through. And it's a really tough thing to go through. But, I mean, you have that support system, which makes it a little bit easier, I'm hoping.
No, it does. I mean, I definitely have, like I said, all my children are grown. Mm-hmm. My oldest is 33. My youngest is 26. So it's kind of like having the support of adults. You know, they're not children. I don't need to take care of them anymore. And they, for sure, agree that this was the best, you know. And I feel a little relieved because one of my daughters she's a physical therapist. She's in, like, the healthcare field. And she reassures me that, like, this is definitely the safest, most, like, best option for everyone involved. So he, for, you know, the past couple of years, has been living in a house with me and my husband. And it's basically 24-hour worry. You know, we don't have to care. He can still go use the bathroom by himself. But, I mean, it just is, he's there all the time. There's always that fear that he's going to fall down the stairs or, you know, and he's kind of a cantankerous old man. He's not the easiest to get along with, so it's like, you know, every day a battle for him to take his medication, a battle for him to take a shower, a battle for him to eat, and it just was exhausting to be around, like,
of course, I mean,
24/7. And our house is tiny. Like, his bedroom was, you know, could spit and you'd be in his room, you know, from my room, so it was like no personal space. And I think I'm just having to kind of accept that it's okay for me to have been feeling overwhelmed, you know, because I think that's kind of what's making me feel guilty.
Well, I mean, I think it's normal to feel guilt with this. It's never easy putting a family member with other people to take care of them. I mean, you kept talking about how he took care of your mom, and you wanted to be that person for him, but you weren't physically or mentally capable of doing that, and that's, I think...
Because, I mean, when he was doing that, he was in his 30s, you know, which, I mean, again, guilt is just the word I keep saying, and it's like I feel guilty that he gave up those years in his youth, but, I'm now twice the age he was at that time. I'm 66. I just can't do it, you know? I have arthritis. I'm, like, an insomniac. I have my own health issues, you know? And so I just am literally physically not able to do it. But it's just been hard to accept that for myself, you know?
Well, I mean, you're acknowledging that you have your own health issues. How have things been going with that?
They're okay, you know? Arthritis is painful and it spreads, so I feel like, and then I have these back issues. My discs are literally disintegrating, so separate from my arthritis is my back issues. And then I have, like, this blood disorder that doctors have to keep an eye on. Just a lot of things. Nothing that's, like, debilitating or like I'm gonna die tomorrow, but just, you know, stressful complications that just make it kind of painful to, like, move around and live, and impossible to take care of somebody with that kind of, you know.
Well, I mean, it made it impossible to take care of someone, but, I mean, you're still seeing him, you know, you said 5 days a week, which is great. I mean, at least you have the support of helping you get him there, but he also still has the support of his family, even though he's in a new foreign place and tends to forget where he is.
Yeah. And I just hope he knows that, you know what I mean? Because I think he feels a little alone right now because he doesn't know where he is, and he feels, like, abandoned almost, even though we go there all the time. So I just hope, my hope is that in time he comes to realize that, like, once he is adjusting, that, like, he isn't deserted, we're still right there, it's just a different place, you know?
I mean, it'll take time. Time heals everything, you know? It's a good old saying. But, I mean, he's going to adjust. I mean, and everyone adjusts in their own way. And, I mean, you're still adjusting to having him there. You're adjusting to driving to see him. And I think it's not just him that it's affecting, it's you. And I think you are realizing that. And I know it's hard for you, but I think you do realize you made the right decision.
Yeah. I
the
think
safest decision, the smartest decision. Parkinson's is a really tough disease to watch.
And it's one of those things too. It's like there is no hope that it's gonna get better. So it's not like, oh, come home, we can like wait it out and maybe it'll go into remission. Like there's no remission for Parkinson's. So it's, you know, we kind of had to accept that it's only gonna get worse from here. So we might as well make the move now while it's still. I don't think it will be. I think it would be worse if we had waited.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, the longer you wait, the harder it gets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but he sounds like he's in a better place and he's going to adjust.
Yeah, and like, I mean, I feel like I'm all doom and gloom, but like he, you know, 70% of the time he's his old self. You know, he can carry on a conversation. And the other day I went to visit him and he was, you know, doing an activity with like socially with other, you know, people at the assisted living. So it's not all terrible. I just, you know, tend to focus on the doom and gloom, but. Yeah.
Well, the socializing is going to help him adapt even more, but he's gonna start to belong soon.
Yeah.
I mean, he's also an assistant. How's your sister doing?
So, she's also, you know, in assisted living out in California, though, and she's not great. You know, I mean, it's just another disease that's just degenerative, you know, so it's never gonna not be bad. It's only gonna get worse, you know. I mean, it's kind of maintaining, the situation is maintaining, you know, like she's there. She doesn't remember conversations from the day before. She misses us, you know, every time we talk to her, she says, she's still cognizant enough to say, I don't want to be here, I want to be in New York, you know, and so, something worrisome, her, you know, I told you her son lived about 10 minutes from where she was.
Your nephew, yeah.
Yeah, so my nephew and his wife and baby just moved, they got new jobs, and they moved down to, they're in San Francisco area, and they just moved down to Southern California, so they just moved like 8 hours away from where my sister is. Yeah, so I'm just fearful that, I mean, his wife is pregnant and they have a baby, so I'm just afraid that Mary's gonna get kind of like forgotten in the chaos of the babies and moving and new jobs, and I'm sure eventually, you know, my nephew will move her down there. I'm just scared that it's gonna be like a while before he gets like around to it, you know.
Well, I remember in a previous thing you had talked about wanting to move her here. Have you spoken to him about that yet, like we discussed?
Yeah, God, that was like my dream. I've been pushing for it for years, you know, and one of the main things was that, you know, if she doesn't come to New York, and now I guess it'd be South Carolina, John and her will never see each other again, you know. John can't go out to California physically. He wouldn't be able to travel.
Of course. And
you know, it was my dream that they would see each other at least one more time because they were really close. They were my older siblings, you know, they're closer in age than I am towards them. And so it was my dream to get her to New York, and hopefully when I was going to be a little sneaky and like, you know, get her here on the premise of a visit and then hopefully kind of just have her stay, you know, because she wants to stay. But yeah, my nephew has said that that's not going to happen, so, and he has full authority over her being, you know, medically, financially, you know, she's his dependent basically at this point, so I really can't do anything about it, and that's like really, really, really another tough pill to swallow, you know, the fact that, I mean, I'll see her again, but that John, because I always laugh about it, John physically is handicapped, but mentally is mostly still there, even though, I mean, he's a little disoriented at the moment, but that's just because of the change, whereas Mary physically is pretty fine, you know what I mean, but mentally she's very deteriorated. So
put them together, it's
a perfect person. Yeah, they're fine. But so we're just like, it's almost a little unfortunate that John is the one that can't travel, you know what I mean, because it's like if he were able to travel he could go to California, but because physically he just really wouldn't be able to do it.
Of course.
You know.
And she'd be able to get help, like a nurse or something, to visit here.
Yeah, and so it just...
Have you thought about maybe seeing if there's a way that you could become her legal guardian, as they're usually called?
But I mean, her son would never let that happen. you know, he won't even let her come visit. So I'm positive that he would never, like, relinquish the control.
Yeah, if you had met with a judge or someone who could decide.
Who's better suited to be her caretaker, yeah. But my husband's really against that, you know. He kind of says, because we've talked about it, and he just thinks that that's, like, adding more stress. And that's basically the opposite of what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to diminish. And he's like, being in control of, you know, your sister's everything, like, that would just be a lot more stressful than I already am. So
yeah, which is also understandable. I know you wanted her here.
Yeah, I think I'm just accepting that that's just not going to happen, and it's really, really, really sad.
Yeah, it's hard to handle. Can you go visit her at all?
Yeah, I go out a few times a year, but it's almost like it doesn't matter. She forgets I even went. The day I leave, she forgets I was there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so at the time, I mean, it's worth it to me because at the time, she knows who I am. She knows I'm there. She knows she's not alone. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't remember it for long, you know?
Yeah. But, I mean, I'm glad you realized that. 'Cause, again, Alzheimer's, it progresses quickly. And things change on a day-to-day basis. You know, as the farther along, there's going to be days she remembers you and she doesn't. And there's going to be days she remembers John and thinks I'm sorry, what's your nephew's name? Jeremiah, that's right. I got John and Jeremiah.
That's okay.
Except there's going to be days where she thinks Jeremiah is John.
Yeah.
And just gets everything confused. And I think you visiting her every once in a while is helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I call her every single day.
Which is, again, that's even better.
If not more than once, because I'll call her, and then a couple hours she'll call me, not remembering that we had already talked on the phone that day, you know, so.
Which can be hard, but I mean, at least you get to talk to her and know she's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like, so I think what, you know, I told you that my children were the ones that suggested I go into counseling.
Yeah.
And I think it was because I had this, like, revelation, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And it's like, I think with my, you know, John having Parkinson's, Mary having Alzheimer's, and Peter, my oldest brother, having already passed away 16 years ago, you know, it just feels like an era of my life is ending, you know what I mean? And I have a few cousins from that time that are still alive, but they're older. They're 78, 79, you know what I mean? And I think I'm just realizing that that entire part of my life is gone. And even though John and Mary are still alive, it's not the same, you know what I mean? They're not my big brother and my big sister anymore, and it's just a really lonely feeling, even though I have my family, and I have, you know, my husband and my children. It's just really a kind of wacky feeling to realize that of that era, of that generation of your life, and your nuclear family, like, you're the only one left.
I mean, it's difficult, and I mean, as you get older, because again, you are 66, things are going to change, and it can be hard, and I know you feel lonely with, you know, so many of your family members being gone, and I know your siblings, they're mentally not here, or they're physically going away, but, I mean, you have your children, it just sounds like, so you have their support, which is always a great thing. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you feel lonely, but there's always something that can change, and I'm sure everything happening with your siblings, it sounds like your children are aware of that. I think they sound like they're supporting you more, and they're going to be there for you.
Yeah, they're understanding to an extent. I think sometimes they get a little frustrated because they see me kind of like going into this rabbit hole of kind of depression over my siblings. And I think sometimes the image I think of them is like they're drowning and they're like, we're here, and I'm so distracted by something else that I'm forgetting the family I have, in exchange for the family I've lost. Does that make sense? You know, I'm like, all of my energy is focused on this part of my life that's dying off and done, and I'm almost neglecting my husband and my children and myself, honestly, in the process.
Well, I mean, I know it sounds like you're neglecting them, that's how you feel, but I'm sure they understand, you know? They see what you're going through. You're saying that they see this, and they just want to be there for you and help you through it. I'm sure that's not how they feel. They're just trying to figure out how to help you.
Yeah, you're probably right. Because, I mean, it was my children's suggestion that I even come to counseling. I just think they get a little impatient, you know, because I don't deal with things in the most healthy way. And I think they're getting a little just, like, frustrated and impatient with me. And, I mean, they're understanding. They're kind, understanding. I love them. But anybody gets pushed to a point, you know, and I think sometimes like I said, I don't take care of myself, and that I think is what worries them the most, is that they fear that I'm almost killing myself with the stress and the anxiety and the insomnia, and just the way that I, you know, cope is not the healthiest. And so I think they have sympathy to an extent, but also are feeling a little frustrated.
I mean, everyone is going to feel frustrated. And it could be frustrated that they don't know how to help you.
Yeah.
There's just so many reasons they could be frustrated. So jumping to one, like, because of how you're being isn't, you know, necessarily the best way. I mean, maybe you should sit down and talk to them about how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And just have a conversation like, I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize for how you feel, but just, like, be honest with them and tell them how you're feeling. And see how they're feeling. And maybe
we try to have those kind of conversations, you know, but it always ends up, I feel like, becoming, like, a attack almost. You know, it starts out like we're worried, but, you know, like I said, I don't cope in the healthiest way, and so I think that they it almost becomes like an attack then on that part of me, you know, because I had mentioned before that I feel like it's no secret that I drink a lot, and that's like how I cope, and so I'm aware of that. But it just feels like every time we try and have one of those family conversations, it just turns into, like, an attack on me.
Well, you know, you've mentioned the coping with the drinking and stuff previously in a couple of our sessions. How about, for right now, we sit down and focus on that, and maybe we can come up with some goals to help with that, because it sounds like you're worried about that. It sounds like your children are worried about that. So why don't we maybe come up with some goals or some... I like to call them homework assignments.
Okay.
I swear it's not as boring as going to
It's
school.
okay, I was a teacher, so I love homework.
So maybe we could come up with a way to slowly work on this.
Yeah.
Something that's going to be beneficial to you, your health, and your children. So maybe something I've heard is starting with, like, tracking. And this might be helpful to keep, not with just the drinking, but keeping track of your emotions and how you're feeling. You could keep, like, a little journal, and you could keep track of how many drinks you have each day, what you were feeling that day, and what you went through.
I think I could do that, because it's not, you know, an immediate change, kind of like, how am I going to say, like, because, you know, my kids are always like, Mom, you need to go to AA, you need to, like, cold turkey, just stop, because...
Which isn't healthy.
Yeah, and, I mean, this has been an issue forever. This is almost unrelated to Mary and John, you know, like, that those issues exasperate it at the moment, you know, they make me feel even worse, so it's probably a bigger problem than it was, but, you know, this has been an issue basically my whole life, and it took me a really long time to come to terms with that, you know, and I have to an extent, but I also just don't feel like I need, you know, help like AA, you know, I don't really desire to completely stop drinking. I would desire to be maybe a little bit more in control of it. So maybe tracking it and seeing, like, what behaviors cause over drinking could help me maybe control.
Because what we could do is in the next week, maybe each night before you go to bed, you could journal how many drinks you had that day, how you were feeling in any big events that happened, and then next week we can, like, you go through your journal, whatever you're willing to share. I'm not going to force you to tell me everything. And we could see, you know, where things spiked and what we could maybe work on.
I think that would be good. I think it would be a little, like, I'm expecting it, honestly, to be maybe a little scary because I think I'm one of those people that I drink a lot more than I realize.
Mm-hmm.
Like I drink throughout a day, if that makes sense. Like I feel like it's not that I start when the sun goes down. It's almost like, oh, I'll have a drink with brunch, breakfast, whatever. And then I'll have another one in the afternoon, and then maybe I'll have a couple in the evening, and then nighttime I'll have a couple more, and before I know it, I've racked up like 8 drinks, because it's not in one sitting, it's like throughout a day.
So like, it's not like you're drinking to get drunk, it's just...
Well, I mean, I drink to get drunk, but it just takes me all day.
So, I mean,
that's always been my issue, is that I can't drink to not get drunk, if that makes sense. Like, I can't have one or two. And so it's like, I drink, and that's always been my kid's problem, is that it's like, I can go days without drinking if I'm in, like, a certain mood or whatever. It's not that but once I start drinking, I cannot stop until, basically, I pass out, because I'm also having insomnia, so I think that's what helps me sleep a lot of the time.
So you're using the alcohol to help you sleep?
Yeah, and that was like a revelation that came. I went on a trip recently, and my daughter was with us, me and my husband, for like a week.
Which daughter?
My youngest daughter. And we had pretty close quarters. We like shared a hotel room for like 4 of the 7 nights. And like I said, I'm an insomniac, and she realized that pretty strongly in that trip. And it was her that said, well, Mom, we're not really drinking, so maybe that's why you can't sleep. And it was true, because the days were so busy, we were so tired and I was with my family the whole time, so it's not like I could be sneaking drinks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the one that said, like, Mom, maybe because you're not drinking yourself into a coma every night is why you can't sleep. And I honestly hadn't connected it before. But...
I mean, your children are recognizing this, and I think what I keep hearing from you, like, you're not directly saying this, but you really don't want your children upset with you, and you want to help yourself to help them.
Yeah.
You know, you want to do better so that, you know, they're not upset with you, because you did mention that every time you sit down and talk with them, they attack you, and you sound upset about this and hurt.
Yeah.
And I think you want to fix that.
And too, it's like, I feel like they always do it after I've been drinking, which I feel like is just such terrible timing, you know. It's like,
well, you're in a different state of mind, so
yeah.
How you're going to react then isn't going to be the same as if you were fully sober. Maybe you should find a time to sit down with them when you know you are fully sober and be like, we need to address this.
Yeah, I actually think that would probably knock their socks off if I was the one to initiate it, you know. I've actually never done that before.
Maybe if you sit down sober and meet with them, they're going to realize you're serious and that you want to get help. And I think making sure being open and honest with them, letting them know you don't want to do an AA. You don't think that's the best fit for you. And there's many options out there. You can always do research for groups. You don't have to do AA. There might be other support groups that you're interested in. Ones that don't require you to attend weekly meetings, or maybe something that's online.
Yeah.
Just finding something that works for you and helps you cope
Yeah,
with that.
like I want to learn, like I said, I want to learn how to control, not how to. I don't want total abstinence. I don't. I think for me that's an unrealistic goal. I mean, my whole life, I'm Irish. My whole life, literally since I could remember, family parties, holidays, any type, it revolves around alcohol. And I think I'd be kidding myself if I felt that I could fully abstain for the rest of my life. But I think if I learned how to, you know, drink moderately, that would be, to me, the best goal. Yeah.
I think that's a good goal. I don't think anyone can quit anything straight up. And depending on the substance, I mean, I'm not going to tell someone who's, you know, doing hardcore drugs to, you know, do it just a little bit here and there.
Right.
But alcohol, if taken moderately, like a glass of wine with dinner, can have some really great health benefits. A glass of wine is supposed to be able to help you relax and wind down so you can go to sleep later that night. So I think those are some good goals to work towards. I know we keep mentioning sitting down and having a children. You've mentioned before, you know, you feel distant and lonely from your children just because they're scattered. How are you dealing with that, with everything that's going on?
Yeah, I just feel like the whole family's scattered. So, you know, me and my husband, we recently, well, actually, we bought the condo 10 years ago, but we rented it out for the first 7 years of it. And so for the past 2 or 3 years since we've retired, we've been going back and forth between our house in New York, which we've lived at that house for 26 years, and the condo in Charleston. So personally, I feel very scattered because it's like, you know, we'll do a month in New York and then maybe 6 weeks in Charleston and then back up to New York because there's a wedding and then back down to Charleston for this or, you know, it just, we haven't really settled in either of the places in honestly like 3 years. We haven't had a consistent pattern. And then to add to that, like my two of my children live in North Carolina, and then my other child lives in New York City. And then, you know, now we just moved Uncle John down to Charleston, and Aunt Mary's in California. It just seems very, but yeah, that's another added stress is like me and my husband have been considering selling our house in New York because there's no reason to have it at this point, really. I think, you know, we say we want to move to Charleston full time, yet I think both of us, we're not admitting it, but I don't think either of us really actually want to fully leave New York. And so for the past 3 years, we've been, you know, we're going to sell the house, but we haven't done anything to actually sell the house. You know, like,
Well, I mean, it has
we haven't done any of the
memories.
maintenance. Yeah. We're honestly begging one of our children to just live there, like, for free. We feel bad that it's going unused, and it's just like, you know, we're still paying the mortgage on it, and it's just no one's making use of it.
Can you rent it out like you were renting out the condo?
Yeah. So, you know, maybe we're not the sharpest tools in the shed, because me and my husband just thought of that, you know, a month or so ago. We're like, well, maybe we could do all of the maintenance and stuff that we would need to do regardless to sell it, and then if we're just not ready to part with it yet, which I think we're both realizing we aren't, we could rent it. So that was a little bit of a relief. I mean, we still have about a year and a half of like maintenance work to do, just because, you know. And then if any of our children ever do decide to move back to Cornwall, the house will be there. Because, you know, me and my husband were born and raised in New York City, and then moved up to Cornwall and lived there for 26 years. So I think both of us thought we were really ready to like leave New York. We're going to retire. We're going to go live in Charleston. It's right by the beach, and the food is great, and the happy hours are awesome. But but I think once push came to shove and it was time to like actually sell the house, we both were feeling a lot of anxiety about it.
Well, I mean, that's a big move. And I mean, that's where you raised your family. It has a lot of meaning for you.
Yeah. And I think right now with like